Today we have something very interesting with Justin Richard. Now, if you haven't watched Justin's videos in the past, you have to check them out. I'll put his link down below, but he does this channel with evaluating his blood sugars on a continuous basis, and the type of information that he has found with experimenting with different foods is amazing. And we're going to share with you some fascinating data about what happens with different foods, and if you check your blood sugars over a period of time rather than just a one-time test, what you're going to reveal. So welcome, Justin.
Thank you very much. I'm super pleased to be here. I'm a big fan of your content. I've been watching you for many, many years, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. You know, I stumbled on your video, and it's like it gets right to the point, and you use this continuous glucose monitor, and you just basically test out all these different foods. Let's just dive in and just talk about some of the things that surprised you that you would never think would create that big of a spike. But I think just before that, what I need to mention is like what we're testing, because if you're new to this channel, I'll just kind of explain what we're testing. So anytime you eat certain foods, especially carbohydrates, depending on the type of carbohydrate, the blood sugar is going to either go, slightly up or really high, and then it will eventually come down, hopefully. And so what's happening is we have different hormones that come in there and help regulate your blood sugars, like insulin. And so when you don't get this leveling off, there could be a problem with insulin. So anyway, that could be more pre-diabetes, and a lot of people have that. So that's kind of my introduction. So jump right in, Justin.
Well, it's really the most important factor for me was insulin resistance. And I have a history of type 2 diabetes in my family. Aunts and uncles have it. My mom has it. And my whole reason for starting this channel was I wanted to do something to preempt this scenario. I don't want to end up with type 2 diabetes. And as I was in my late 40s, I was noticing that I was getting low energy year after year. My energy levels were diminishing year after year. And especially after I ate food, and particular foods, highly processed sugary foods, this really it zapped my energy, and I was having a hard time working through the day. And given the history of type 2 diabetes in my family, I realized that I needed to do something quickly to get this under control, because I was on that road to, diminishing my health year after year. So that's the reason I did this. And I'm so grateful that I did get the CGM, because it really takes the guesswork out of managing your blood sugar. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of surprises that happen along the way. You realize what these foods are actually doing. Mm-hmm. In particular, these highly processed sugary foods, they really have a great impact on your blood sugar levels. And it really is an eye opener when you get this CGM and you really see what's going on.
Yeah, and CGM is the continuous glucose monitor, for those of you that didn't quite understand what that is. But yeah, that's right. Awesome.
Yeah, so when I first got it, I was just continuing what I was eating just to see what the foods that I would commonly eat were doing to my blood sugar. And I ate a lot of highly processed foods, a lot of baked goods. Baked goods are my favorite thing. I grew up with them, and I am not ashamed to say that I believe I have a sugar addiction to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. I crave sugar quite often. It's hard for me sometimes to say no to sugar, especially these baked goods and things like that. So when I first got the continuous glucose monitor, I was just testing out what these foods that I commonly ate are doing to my blood sugar. And it was a shocking surprise that these are really high elevations in blood sugar for me. And also they had quite a long duration. So that's not something that I wanted to continue. So it really brought this to light for me. And I started to alter my diet accordingly. Now, I do want to mention as well, too, that I still eat sugar from time to time, but I've cut back that intake significantly. So
yeah, so it's if someone eats sugar, obviously it's going to go up. What surprised you the most? What kind of food that you ate? You're like, wow, I had no idea it spiked that high.
Well, besides the obvious sugary treats and stuff like that, white flour, any even bread or even whole wheat breads for me really spike my
Mm,
blood sugar more than I thought they would. For
mhm.
some people, that may be different. That may be potatoes or rice for other people. If we're, off the track of the highly processed foods, those are the standard foods that a lot of people are eating all the time. They have a significant impact, or they can have a significant impact. So for me, it's that white flour, anything with white flour, that's pasta, breads, things like that.
So, then you're going to get people that'll say, well, I'm going to have whole wheat bread versus white bread. Have you ever tested those two?
I've tested that. There's a minimal difference between the two.
Right.
It's all highly processed. A lot of that is marketing. They tell you that
Yeah.
it's brown bread, and it's really not that much different. I've also tested sourdough bread,
Yeah.
and not much of a difference. And then, of course, there's the argument that not the bread that you buy, the sourdough bread that you buy at the grocery store, is not authentic sourdough.
Hmm.
And that requires a fermentation process that you usually only get at a bakery. So I went to a local bakery. I got the authentic sourdough bread, and it did not have that reduction that I was hoping for. So a lot of these things that you see and read online, you really have to test them for yourself,
Hmm.
because, they may have studies behind them and things like that, but not everybody reacts the same way. Unfortunately, it's not uh, um, entirely accurate when you're taking those into account. I've tried freezing bread to increase the resistant starch overnight, freezing it and toasting it. It has a slight difference, but all in all, these whole uh, these breads or these flours really have a high impact on the blood sugar, for me at least, anyway, and many people as well too.
Darn it. So
Yeah.
what about Ezekiel breads? People are going to wonder about that sprouted bread. Have you tested that?
I do, and that's my go-to bread. I use that all the time. It seems to have the smallest impact on my blood sugar with the breads,
Okay.
and part of the reason is because the slices of that Ezekiel bread are a little bit smaller as well too. So that's something to take into account. But it is a healthier bread when you read the ingredient list, and it's lower on the glycemic index than most breads that are using this white flour. So it is a good choice for me, and
Okay.
all the recipes that I do, when I'm trying to cut back on the glycemic load, I use the Ezekiel bread.
Interesting.
Hmm.
So I have a question. So, we talked about sugar, but if we take a look at sugar and then we deduct the fiber and the sugar from it, we have what's called a net carb. People don't really know what that is, but I'm just going to tell you right now. It's for those of you watching. It's a starch, right? So sometimes you'll see products like this right here, Doritos. It has
Yeah.
zero sugar, right? Zero
Right.
sugar. So it must be okay. But have you ever tested maybe, I don't know, like a starch potato versus modified food starch, or a refined starch like this, like really refined?
Yeah, generally products like that have corn as the ingredient really spike my blood sugar as well too. They're generally really high on the glycemic index, and they can be problematic for me. So I try to avoid those as well too. There's a lot of seed oils in those fried foods as well too. Those are deep fried as well. So there's some issues with that for me as well too. So I try to stay away from that. So it's not only about the blood sugar for me. I'm trying to eat healthier all the way around. Blood sugar
Hmm.
is one of the things that I'm trying to watch, but
Yeah.
I do consider things like that as well too.
Well, you were into the pastries, bread stuff. I was into the salty chips in college. I would
Hmm.
do a much bigger bag of Doritos in one sitting. But this right here doesn't seem like that much, right? So this is 14 serving sizes. Okay, 14. So do you think anyone's going to have 1/14 of this in one sitting? So
No.
if we just multiply the hidden sugars, which is the refined carbs and starch in here, this is how much sugar you're getting in this one bag.
Yeah. That's incredible. It's just, and it's so deceiving. these foods are so highly palatable. These companies that manufacture these take a lot of time to get their recipes to have the maximum effect on your biochemistry to make you crave them more and more. I did some research on Doritos, and they actually hook people up to a brain scan to see how their brain is reacting to these chips when you eat them. And they have their whole set of terminology. They're looking for the bliss point. So when you eat something, it's the right amount of dopamine that keeps you coming back for more of these chips. It makes this stuff really, really hard to resist. And that's why, like me, a lot of people are hooked on this stuff, and it's hard to get off it. When you're comparing that food to a healthy food like broccoli, it's difficult to say, oh, I like the flavor of that broccoli better than these Doritos. It's a hard thing to shake when you're up against that. So it's, but part of understanding what is happening when you're eating that and having that data of your blood sugar can really show you what is going on. And that can kind of scare you straight, so to speak. It can say, you know what, the consequences of me eating this stuff they're not good. And I need to start doing something about it. When you start to get those symptoms later in life, you have to make a decision, say, do I want to continue down this path? Or do I want to do something to make myself feel better and to regain my health that I once had when I was younger? So but that's the battle is trying to stay away from these highly processed foods, increase the consumption of the whole foods that are high in fiber, rich in nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and low in this highly refined sugar that we're getting a lot of. So that's the challenge that I face, and I think a lot of people face. That's what gets a lot of people in trouble with their metabolic health, is this food addiction. We all have our favorite snacks. We all have our favorite foods. Ice cream for some people, potato chips, or baked goods, or chocolate, whatever that is. Those are highly addictive foods, and they can really do a number on your blood sugar.
There's a book called, I think, The Dorito Effect. And what's interesting, they talk about the history of it. They manipulate the food to give this spike and burst of chemical, joy, dopamine, but then it drops really fast. So it's almost like, I need another one. It's like, I fell for it for years. I was in the trap. It took me a very long time to eventually come off those things, even if I was like, my stomach is in pain. So I know a lot of people are stuck in that trap. So, the advantage of this continuous glucose monitor is that you can't really necessarily know what's going on other than just feeling it, like with your blood sugars. But now you can actually really see it and measure it. And so, but without measuring it, you can't really control it, so be able to see the effects, not just like right after the food, but like even hours later, is super valuable, especially since not just food can affect your blood sugars, right?
Right. For me, a lack of sleep can increase my fasting blood sugar levels by 10, 15, even 20 points the next day.
Wow.
And my insulin sensitivity is not as good as well too. So when I do eat the carbohydrates, I'll spike higher and for longer periods of time. Sleep is a big factor. Stress is also a big factor. And everybody says that, but nobody really understands the real consequences of that. When you have the continuous glucose monitor, you can see on the graph, oh, my fasting blood sugar level is actually up 15 points today because I only got, 5 hours sleep last night, or highly stressed. It really is, it's something to see that, because you don't consider that it would have that much of an impact. But when you see it, it's significant. Another thing that having the continuous glucose monitor that is an advantage is this tests your blood sugar every 5 minutes. So it's like doing a finger stick every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
So you get a chance to see your blood sugar levels overnight. And I used to be a late night eater. I used to eat, a couple of hours, 1 hour before bed sometimes. And if I eat something like pizza or popcorn, caramel popcorn, I've done some tests on my page with that, and went to sleep, my blood sugar will spike 50, 60, 65 milligrams per deciliter, and it will stay up for 6-7 hours all through the night. And I would never have known that had I not had the continuous glucose monitor to show me what's going on overnight, because you're not going to get up every 5 minutes and prick your finger to do the test. So that information is valuable. And that is enough to say, look, I am not going to be eating late at night before bed, especially high carbohydrate meals like that. Now my rule is I try to give myself 3 to 4 hours before I go to bed to digest that food. And I also try to make my last meal of the day more of a keto style meal. Low carbohydrates, higher proteins, higher fats. So if I am hungry, I can still satiate myself, but I'm not going to do these high carbs, because going to sleep with a full stomach of carbohydrates is not good for my blood sugar.
So you said 6 hours.
6-7 hours even.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that's, and I'm not even considered type 2 diabetic. So, but that is alarming when you see that, because you've got, your stomach is filled with these carbohydrates. You're not active. You don't have a chance to burn these calories off while you're sleeping as much as you do when you're up and you're active. So that revelation to me really made a big change with my behavior. I try not to eat. I do eat carbohydrates throughout the day, and sometimes I fall off the wagon and I eat these highly refined foods. But now I do them with some very specific hacks or ways to mitigate those blood sugar spikes in mind. I keep that in mind. So I'm not going to eat those high carbohydrate meals before bed. If I am going to have some carbohydrates, I'll include some proteins and some fats and something fibrous to help slow down those carbohydrates.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So what we want to do, what people, it's impossible to say, no, you never can have this for the rest of your life. But if you do, there's things you could do, right, to buffer this insulin response. So
absolutely,
let's talk about that. So you found fiber will do it, right?
Fiber. So if you're going to have a salad or something before a meal, or even vegetables, raw vegetables, things like that, even having an apple can help as well too. If you're just going to eat a chocolate bar by itself, I get a pretty big spike. But I've done some tests on my page where I've had some hard-boiled eggs before that, or some broccoli before that, and I've done the test. It can bring.
Protein, are you saying protein also can help?
These 3 things: fats, fibers, and proteins. They have a significant impact. They slow down the rate at which that food moves through your digestive system, and that can reduce the blood sugar spike, the post-meal blood sugar spikes. So I've tested each of them individually, proteins, fats, and fibers. They all do a pretty good job. But if I'm going to have a chocolatey treat or a piece of cake or something like that, I can have proteins, fats, and fibers beforehand. It fills me up, so I'm less likely to eat more of the junk food that I'm going to eat, and it helps to dampen or bring down that blood sugar spike from that highly processed food. So that's a good rule of thumb that I've been incorporating. You can also take supplements. You can also take apple cider vinegar, which I know you've talked about. That has acetic acid in it, which helps to slow down that digestion process as well. That can bring a blood sugar spike down by as much as 30%. And that really works.
Wow.
I mix a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water. You drink that right before your meal, and it can really help to reduce that blood sugar spike.
I wonder if that's why some people unknowingly take a piece of bread, toast it, add butter, and then cinnamon to help buffer the response. I don't know if that would do anything, but that would be an interesting test.
Yeah. And also, when you look at the sequence of how people eat their meal, they usually start with a salad, then they have the meal, and they finish with dessert. Well, that is the correct way to eat. And that may have been developed or recognized over the years of tradition. You eat your salad first, then your meal, and then your dessert last. That is going to slow down the absorption or the digestion of that sweet treat at the end. So that's the proper sequence to eat things, is to save the sweet treats for last.
And plus, when you eat a salad, because if you eat the protein first and even the salad after that, I notice that people don't finish their salad. So because they kind of like the protein is the biggest satisfier, not the
Yeah.
salad. So I always have the salad first. Not everyone does that, but I think that works for me. When we talked before, you had a great tip, just to minimize the temptation and try to do a lifestyle that this stuff is not in your face all the time. So let's talk about like tips that people can do that can minimize even the exposure of this junk food, other than
Yeah,
just seeing, wow, my blood sugars are high, but what else could we do?
it's true. There's, it's all about developing habits for me. So the time all this time that I spent eating these junk foods, that's all through my life, have become habits for me. So I want a sweet treat after a meal. I want something sweet in the morning. It's all about changing those habits from bad habits into good habits. So I work on one or two at a time. The last one I've been trying is obviously don't go to the grocery store. And this is simple. These are simple habits that we've all probably heard before, but when you use them, they actually can really work. Don't go to the grocery store when you're hungry. Go after you've eaten some food. You make better choices there. And it's important for me when I do see something at the store that I want to buy, like something that's sweet, donuts or something like that, I say no to it at the grocery store, because at the grocery store, I only need to say no to it one time. If I bring that item home and I put it in my fridge or my cupboard, every time I open the fridge, I have to say no to that. That might be 4, 5, 6 times a day. I say no to it once at the grocery store. Don't bring it into your environment. Don't make it easy to access that food. That's a really important tip. And if you can implement that and stick with that little habit, it can have a significant impact for the rest of your life.
I
So
like that.
developing even simple little things like that can make big changes. If you're going to have a big meal, another great one is, you're going to eat a big meal. There's a high carbohydrate load. Go for a 10, 15-minute walk after that meal. That can have a really significant impact to help bring that blood sugar spike down or keep it at a nicer level. So walking just like that, 10, 15 minutes, a really good habit to start doing. And those are small little things that most people can do. It's free, and they have a significant impact.
I like that. Yeah, because if you're the first 30 minutes of walking, you're burning up all your extra sugar in your blood. So that's very important. But I'm going to use that, because what you said before, because yeah, like if you buy it, it's in your fridge. Now you have to constantly say no every single day, every single night. You're like, no, not no, no. It keeps calling out to you.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s and then 28, I think that's when I got married, and then early 30s, right before keto, I couldn't sleep. This is probably my late 20s. I couldn't sleep. So the only way I could sleep is have a pint of Ben and Jerry's ice cream before bed. You can imagine my blood sugars. And I think now looking back, it was a sugar coma. Like, you start spiking the sugar too high and it's going to put you out. Of course, I'd wake up like I had a hangover, but at least it helped me sleep because I had the restless legs from the vitamin B deficiency that was created from all the carbohydrates. So I was in that mode for quite some years. And it wasn't until, and I don't know if this happened to you or not, but there's a certain point in your life where you make a shift of like, okay, I'm going to change my diet. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I feel better. It was when I added protein for breakfast instead of my carbohydrate, big, huge muffin and my orange juice. I don't know what you did, but I had a protein breakfast. That was like the biggest simple change that made me feel better. What about you? What did you do?
I started to do intermittent fasting. So I started a 16-8 intermittent fast. So all the tests that I do, by the way, are after a 16-hour fast on an empty stomach. So I've put that into my life, and that's something that I can stick with rather easily. So I'm never usually hungry first thing in the morning. So that was an easy habit for me to pick up, intermittent fasting. And then after that, I started to add protein into the first meal of the day. So about 30 to 40 grams of protein. I found that when I did that, I was satiated. I had better energy levels throughout that whole morning or after breaking the fast, usually around noon. So after eating protein, including that made a significant difference. And then, of course,
before that, what were you eating before that?
Oh, donuts and junky stuff, sugary, like breakfast cereals. Breakfast cereals are so high in sugar and they really spike blood sugar. So, and that's what everybody does. You grow
Mm-hmm.
up with Cocoa Puffs and Fruit Loops and all these things, and you think that's normal. That's a normal diet for a lot of people. And we're unknowingly spiking our blood sugar significantly first thing in the morning. And when you do that first thing in the morning, that sets you up to be hungry and tired for the rest of the day. Setting your biochemistry up with a proper meal first thing when you break your fast really has a positive effect for the rest of the day. So I find that when I do the test, like the other day was National Donut Day. So I said, all right, I'm going to do 2 donuts. I'm going to eat 2 donuts. I'm going to test them. So I did it after my 16-hour fast on an empty stomach and had a pretty big blood sugar spike there.
God.
But for the rest of the day, I was tired. I was craving more sugar. I wanted more sweets. So that first meal of the day is really, really important. And I discovered that.
Did you, how is, just have you noticed a big change in your mood, your overall mood when in the past versus when you are doing good foods?
Yeah. And for me, my mood is really directly correlated with my level of energy. So if I have low energy, I don't feel like doing anything and I'm not productive. When I'm not productive, I say, why am I not doing this? Why am I not motivated? And that can get me down because I don't feel productive and I feel like I've lost the day. It can bring me down a little bit. I've also experienced some anxiety if I have too many carbohydrates. But that energy level was a big thing for me. After I would eat a meal, any of these meals, I would get so tired, I would be falling asleep in my chair, literally. So it has a direct effect on my energy level, which in turn has an effect on my mood. Getting that under control has been a real game changer in my life. That energy level is where it all started for me. I realized, late 40s, it started, mid to late 40s, year after year, just getting tired every day and not having the energy that I once had. And I said, what is going on here? And then I was researching insulin resistance. And that's one of the symptoms. When you start to lose your energy, you're not using the food properly, it's not metabolizing properly, and your blood sugar levels are altered, making you tired. A lot of things go on with that. And that really has a significant impact on a lot of people. You don't have the time and energy. You don't have the energy to do what you want to get done during the day. You don't have the energy to connect with the people in your life that you want to. That has a serious impact besides your health.
Massive. When you were growing up, were you like a serious junk food junkie, or were you moderately eating poorly and then just snacking and then kind of going through your 20s? Like what severity were you at as far as junk foods?
I would say, I've been 40 pounds heavier than I am now. And, I would say I have a sugar addiction. I would say that. And I think a lot of people do. I think a lot of us are afraid to admit that. But I would find a lot of pleasure in going to the store and buying a variety of junk foods and going home and eating them. That was a real treat for me. I felt
Would you also
good.
do like healthier foods too at the same time, like growing up?
Not then, not at that time.
Okay.
Growing up, that was a way for me to have like a guarantee that I would feel good. I would go to the store, I would buy some chocolate, I would buy some potato chips and maybe a soda, and then I would come home and I would eat them. And I would really get a lot of delight out of that. So it was a way for me to. I'm sorry?
Did you have it in your house too? Was there always junk food in the house?
Well, not so much when I was very young. My mom didn't do that. But when I got out on my own, I remember when I got my first job, I was 12, I was doing some stuff and I had my own income. I could go to the store and buy this stuff that I wanted. And for me, it was just a real treat. And, looking back on that now probably was, soothing myself in some way. But yeah, I am still drawn to those foods, and every once in a while I do fall off the wagon. Like the other day I did the donuts and I said, wow, these really are good. Yeah. But again, knowing the consequences of that really put things into perspective, and it really can hold you accountable for that.
You
So
could just schedule those days on the days you do the videos to kill two birds with one stone, right? So it's
that's
it's
right.
it's for the video.
That's what I've been doing. And then, when I do those videos, I'll follow it up the next day with some way to mitigate this. So
Good.
either going for a walk or taking supplements like berberine or apple cider vinegar, which I did after the donuts. I did that the following day, and that can really help to reduce those blood sugar spikes too. So I'm realistic in the sense that it's very difficult to drop all this highly processed food. Like 80% of the food out there is highly processed.
Yeah, 83%.
Difficult to give that up entirely and just switch over to whole foods. That's a tough challenge. So my goal is to bring this down, bring the balance of this, the ratio of highly processed foods to these whole foods. I want to bring that down. If I'm at 80% processed foods and 20% whole foods, I want to bring that up to 50%. My goal is to bring that up so I'm eating more whole foods to processed foods. And that can have a tremendous impact alone. But to be conscious of what category the foods I'm eating are in, highly processed versus whole foods, that is a big thing as well too. That's a good habit to get into. What am I eating here? Is this processed or is this a whole food? And then being conscious of that, bringing that ratio up. But again, it's really hard to do that entirely, just to quit that processed food, sugary food, cold turkey. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's about making incremental steps towards evening out this ratio of processed to highly.
I think that's one of the advantages of the continuous glucose monitors. You can, number one, you can really kind of finally face and look inside your body and go, oh my gosh, this is what's happening. Because before you kind of like, I don't want to think about it. But if it's in your face, you're checking your glucose and you're looking at that. That's motivating. Yes, you feel better, but then you see it and then like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, and then you also have, just the experience of going through this. I think if a person had the basic understanding and they experienced it for at least a week or two, I don't think they're going to ever go back to where they were originally, because now they know they feel so much better. Like, I mean, I think this is what the glucose monitor is helping with, is like making more of a longer change and not ever going back, because now it's in your knowledge base and it's not just you've experienced it. Because I don't know if you would agree with this. I had to go through some suffering, and then I had to change my diet to really prove to myself this was correct. I mean, you don't have to, once you feel that way, it's like, there's a point where, what, am I going to ever go back? No, because I know. I don't want to feel that way.
That's like me with late night eating, carbohydrates late at night. I say to myself, do I want to go through an all night spike again for this? No.
Yeah, right. It's not worth it. So one tip that I use is I'll see something that I like. I like popcorn, for example, and I'll just put myself, okay, let me just envision myself eating it. Okay, what the pleasure, and then what am I going to feel like about a half hour later, an hour later? I'm like, no, I think I'll pass. But there's if we take a look at processed food, I recently started looking at all the processed foods and looking at the common denominator, what really makes it up as far as like ingredients. And there's a lot of complexities in the label, but really when you come down to it, there's just three things that make up 99% of it. And that would be this right here, which is maybe not in the form of even sugarcane. It's too expensive. They use beet sugar or glucose syrup. And then of course you have seed oils. There's always seed oils. Now, what's interesting about that is people think saturated fats in junk food. No, they're all unsaturated fat. I mean, do you ever see any more like lard or tallow in here? No, it's seed oils. And then you have, of course, modified food starch, modified cornstarch, maltodextrin. So that's it. And if you were just to take those three ingredients and mix them up and put some flavoring on there, you wouldn't eat it. It has to be packaged in a really nice thing like this, and it has to be in the right texture. But I think more education is going to be the key to get people off of it. And then I think I want to close with the continuous glucose monitor. I personally went out to get one, and I think it was it the Freebird, or what was that called?
The Lifestyle Libre. It's the Lifestyle Libre. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried that. You know what? It didn't work. It was actually really bad reviews. And then I tried it again, and I tried it a third time, and it just broke down. And then right now I just got the one that you recommended. So
Yeah.
what? And I don't even remember what it's called because I just got it in the mail. Which one do you use?
I use the brand, it's Signos, and they cater to people that are trying to improve their metabolic health. And I really like them because of the software. The software is very intuitive and easy to use. And once you get the data, what you do with the data is important. So being able to read that data properly is important. And some of the interfaces that you get with these other companies are not as intuitive, not as easy to use. Customer service is an important one as well. If you have any questions, you want to be able to get a quick answer so you can move on and get things going. So that's another issue as well too. I like this company. I've been working with them for over a year and a half now, and not all of these things run perfectly all the time. There are little hiccups along the way, but of all the ones I've tried, this one seems to be the most stable, and it works very, very well. So
yeah, even the reviews are much better. That's important. But also, is it smaller too?
It's small. Yeah, it's a nice small. Okay. So these companies usually use one of two hardwares. So the biotech is there's two companies that really do it. One is the Lifestyle Libre, and the other one is the Dexcom. And the Dexcom has higher ratings. A lot of people like it more, but it's the service that you get. They have different software, different applications that you have on your phone. And I've tried a lot of different ones. And again, you want ease of use, and you want something with an interface that gives you suggestions on what to do. So when I'm eating something and I have a blood sugar spike, it'll notify me. It'll make suggestions for me to lower that blood sugar, like go for a walk. Now's the time to do some exercise. I can log the foods that I eat, and it will tell me, give me suggestions on what to do to manage my blood sugar, which is a really good thing. So you're not just stuck with a bunch of data that you don't really know what to do with. So a lot of the brands out there kind of don't offer as much as what the Signos does, and that's part of the reason I like it so much.
I'm excited to use it. I'll be doing some experiments myself, and then I will have to do another video. But I will put your link down below. Also, Cigna. There's a link down there as well. And hey, thanks for this collaboration. I think this is a great video that people will start to kind of maybe start using this data to change their lifestyle.
Yeah, I think it's an exciting time to have this information. It really takes the guesswork out of managing your blood sugar. And for me, it's really helped a lot. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Have a good one.
Take care.